In the 2015 NBA Finals, the 67-win Warriors faced off against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Game 1 resulted in a Golden State win, led by Stephen Curry, who scored 26 points. It was also the infamous game where Kyrie Irving would suffer a fractured kneecap. In the game that would keep him out for the rest of the series, backup guard Matthew Dellavedova would take his place. What most fans thought would be the nail in the coffin for Cleveland would turn out to be the biggest test of Steph Curry's career up until that point.
Unlikely hero, Matthew Dellavedova.
Dellavedova's defense on Curry has been outstanding.
And the astonishing run by Matthew Dellavedova continues.
Delly almost died guarding Steph Curry.
Game 1 was a fairly standard game for Steph and the Warriors. As I said before, Curry would put up 26 points, and it came in the form of offense that Golden State had been running for most of the season, with Steph moving off ball and running pick and roll with Cleveland's bigs on the perimeter to create easy mismatches. And with Iman Shumpert spending a lot of time guarding Klay Thompson, Kyrie Irving was left with the Steph assignment on a lot of these plays. This likely wouldn't have been sustainable, but the injury to Irving would force Cleveland to make an adjustment. So in Game 2, Matthew Dellavedova would replace Kyrie in the starting lineup, but he wouldn't start on Steph right away. The Cavs started Game 2 with Iman Shumpert guarding Steph and Delly guarding Klay Thompson. This was ineffective, as the height difference allowed Klay to just be able to shoot over him, which really got him going early in the game. So, midway through the first quarter, with Klay Thompson in foul trouble, the Cavs flipped the assignments, and Delly was now on Steph. And Steph still got a few quality looks in the first quarter, but they just weren't falling, which is where his struggles really began. Day was doing a really good job of chasing Steph through the screens off ball, which closed his window to get off those good looks. And when he started missing them, he started rushing these shots. As an adjustment, Steph started running a little pick and roll, but Day proved to be a pest on these possessions as well. Even on plays where Steph was able to get separation, he just couldn't get himself in rhythm. And with Timothy Mozgov on the floor, this really limited Golden State's offense, as they would have to play non-spacing bigs to match the size of Cleveland's two big lineup with Mozgov and Tristan Thompson. All of these factors really allowed Cleveland to dictate the pace of the game from the start, but the second quarter was where we would see the first instance of the series of what would later be known as Golden State's death lineup, with Draymond Green at center, and it showed flashes of what was to come, like this play where the Warriors run stagger screens up top to involve both Cleveland bigs in the action. Harrison Barnes is the first screener. He rolls and forces Mozgov to drop into the paint, and so there's nobody else left when Steph comes off the second screen. Still, the size of Mozgov proved to be an issue with this lineup, and so Golden State went away from it, going back to a mix of Mo Spaces and Andrew Bogut to finish the first half. And the start of the second half was no different, with Day continuing to be an issue for Steph both on and off ball. But it was clear that he was using every ounce of energy he had in his effort against Steph, as noted by Jeff Van Gundy.
Right now, he's put so much into his defense. He couldn't run the court that time.
But even with Delly gassed, Steph started taking himself as well as Delly or Shumpert out of the play. The logic here was to allow the Warriors to play 4-on-4. And even though, yes, he's taking himself out of the play, he's also removing the best perimeter defender on the floor from any sort of action going on, which had some success. But again, this likely wasn't gonna be sustainable. So in the fourth quarter, with nothing really going offensively, Steph started to get really impatient and just started forcing up shots to try to get himself going. Still, even with him struggling, with 10 seconds left, he was still able to get this shot to go, with LeBron cross-matched onto him and Tristan Thompson involved in the action. This gave him that little bit of separation he needed to get away.
Drives down the lane, ties the game!
But despite that, the Cavs and Delly's defense prevailed in overtime. Yes, and Steph Curry was held to what is still, arguably, the worst shooting playoff game of his entire career, shooting just 5 for 23 from the field and making just 2 shots outside the restricted area. Game 3 saw several adjustments on both sides. Golden State went back to running more off-ball screens for Steph to try to tire Delly out, which created some quality looks early in the game. But Cleveland's rotation and the non-spacing from Andrew Bogut allowed Mozgov to just remain parked in the paint. So, the Cavs' defense eventually went back to anyone but Steph, daring the Warriors to make shots, and Golden State struggled to make the Cavs pay. It even bled into the places where Steph was on ball as well. As Steph would run pick and roll to get Delly switched off of him, the Cavs would trap him and force him to give the ball up, and it's really back to Game 2 all over again, with the Warriors playing 4-on-4, trying to beat this team now for 1.5 games. Cleveland had effectively removed Stephen Curry from a lot of Golden State's offense. Going into halftime with just 3 points, the Warriors, as a team, scored just 37 points in the first half, one of their lowest scoring halves all season. And for the very first time all year, the Warriors looked absolutely rattled, partly because throughout the regular season and most of the playoffs, they really hadn't faced that much real adversity like this. But they had to find something, and with them going down by 20, their adjustment came in the third quarter. They went back to running pick and roll with Steph, but they changed the location of the screens. Up to this point, Golden State had been setting the screens at the three-point line. But now, they decided to move them closer to half court. This would do multiple things. It would give Curry more space to attack downhill, as Cleveland's bigs would get blown by if they played up on the screen. And it also forced Cleveland to switch more often, which prevented them from being able to trap him as much. The result was that Steph was able to really get his game going for the first time since Game 1. He attacked Tristan Thompson's switches with ease, and for the first time in a while, the MVP really looked like he was back. What this also did was it forced the Cavs' bags out of the paint, which created even more space and more openings now that there was no big presence down there. In the case of Mozgov, it reduced his impact as a rim protector, and for Tristan Thompson, he became less of a rebounding threat. Where we truly saw the Warriors' offense come alive was with David Lee as the screen setter. Lee is a great decision maker in these situations. So, with the Cavs' defense having to rotate, these are easy reads for him to be able to make. And so, the Warriors slowly started making a run, but it proved to be too little, too late, as the Cavs would be able to hold off Golden State for the second game in a row. But it was clear that Golden State was figuring a lot of things out, and it was likely just a matter of time before they were really able to turn things around. But it was also clear that the effort Delly was putting in this series was really taking a toll, as after Game 3, he would need IV treatment for dehydration, so severe that his entire body was cramping. The Cavs doctors had determined that he would need additional rehydration, possibly through the entire night, and the decision was made to hospitalize him overnight and continue treatment, with him eventually being released the following day. At the same time, the Warriors were planning to go all in on their small ball lineup with Draymond at center. This would create mismatches everywhere on the floor, force the pace to be sped back up in their favor, and challenge Cleveland's bigs on defense.
And in Game 4, they came out starting that lineup, and almost instantly you saw the impact.
The amount of wide open looks was night and day, and with the bigs almost constantly
being pulled out of the paint, this also led to more offensive rebounds for Golden State. As for the pace, the faster lineup meant that they could run more fast breaks off of Cleveland's misses. As for Steph, he upped his aggressiveness even more, and the indecisiveness that we had seen from him in the previous 2 games was no longer there. He was much more in control of the pace and the offense. He made better reads on Cleveland's trapping and switches, and he was able to free himself up more easily.
The extra movement also meant that Delly would once again be exhausted guarding him, which started to become obvious around the third quarter. And by the end of the game, the entire Cleveland team had pretty much run out of gas, trying to keep up with the faster pace of Golden State, scoring just 12 points in the fourth quarter. So now with the series tied 2-2, the real test would be Game 5. Golden State came in starting the same small ball lineup, and they also made additional adjustments.
Cleveland responded to the lineup, changed by posting up Mozgov and Tristan Thompson more often, as they would have a clear size advantage. Golden State responded by
which features a bunch of plays that show his growth from Games 2 and 3, and quite frankly, a little bit of magic thrown in, 6 being a continuation of the previous 2. And despite multiple first-half runs from Cleveland, the Warriors were able to maintain a 10 to 12 point cushion for most of the second half. With Delhi now absolutely gassed, the less physical Iman Shumpert was back on Steph, and the MVP was free to do whatever he wanted, leading Golden State. Pass. One of their first major adversities with this roster, and trusting himself through his own struggles early in the series, all caused by an unforeseen Cleveland hero in the form of Matthew Dellavedova, who truly gave every ounce of energy he had into stopping him, with Delly saying after the series, quote, "I was just spent as an athlete. That's really all you can do. There's really nothing more I physically could have done."
Man,
He tried.
he tried.
No, he battled his ass off.
When I
Like,
tell you,
competed.
I love just from watching that. Dellavedova is by far one of my greatest people I like of all time. Like he literally gave everything he had, and there was no excuse. There wasn't none of that. He could barely talk after. That's how hard he was trying. Like that respect level to me, it goes through the roof.
It proved to be tricky, but ultimately Steph prevailed in the matchup. He was able to lead Golden State to their first title in 40 years, the finals MVP going to Andre Iguodala, which might be another conversation for another day. But with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you're new, hit the bell to be notified when I upload.